In the first demo of this module, I'm going to create a partial view, and then we'll update the overview page to use the partial view. If we run the application again, we'll see something that bothers me a little bit. In fact, from a code perspective, that is. The pies of the week are shown using an image, then the name, and then the price. And also on the pies list page, I'm doing pretty much the same thing. Wouldn't it be better if we just share that UI code? That we can do using a partial view. I'm going to create a partial view that contains, well, this bit of code here. This is part of the index view. And so this code, I actually want to wrap that inside of a partial that I can then reuse across multiple pages. Typically, you'll put partial views under the shared folder. They are searched for in that folder as well. So I can go here and add a new item. I'm going to add a partial view. There is no specific template for partial views. As you can see here, we just take a regular eraser view. So again, take the eraser view empty. And there is a convention in place that says that partial views should also have their name start with an underscore. So I'm going to call this the PyCard, underscore PyCard to be exact. On that partial view PyCard, well, I'm going to just copy the code that we had before in the index.cshtml. So I'm going to go back to my index.cshtml and take this code here. On the PyCard, I first will define the model again. The model will be a pie, and I just paste in the code. I will get some errors here because this is now looking for pi, but the model is now pi, so I need to replace this with model. So let's bring that in here, in here, in here too, in here too, and in here too. So I hope you understand, before we were looping over the pi in here in the for each, here we now have a strongly typed view again, typed in pi, and so we can refer to the pi instance that we'll get in using model. Now I can go back to my index.cshtml, and in here I'm going to use another tag helper. That's the partial tag helper. Now before we had tag helpers that were just working as an attribute, this is really a full tag known to ASP.NET Core, so on the server side. To that partial, I now specify the name to be underscore PyCard. Again, we do not need to specify a full path or the .cshtml, and the model property, I should set that to pi lowercase because that is this pi here. And of course, I need to close my tag. With that in place, I can just copy this line here, and I'll go to my pi list and take this code, which was the exact same code, and replace that with this partial as well. Let's run the application again. We should see, in fact, the exact same thing, but let's verify. So our pies are still showing on the home page. That's good. The links are working. We go to pies and we see the same thing. So that looks good. Everything is still working as before. Now, I hope you see already that by moving this code into a partial view, I've been able to reuse it. And if I need to make a change now, I simply go to PyCard and it is changed throughout all the pages that use this PyCard. So partial views are really useful for reuse, but they can also be used to basically split up a larger, more complex view into smaller views. Let's go back to the index. That index had this carousel here at the top, which doesn't do anything useful. I may be tempted to move that also into a partial, which doesn't even require a model because, as you can see, this is just plain markup code. But to make my view a bit simpler, I'm going to cut that out here as well. Create another partial view. Let's call it carousel because it contains a bootstrap carousel. Just paste in all that code. There we go. Save it. Go back to our home page, and I can now use partial here as well, specifying that the name should now be underscore carousel. There's no model because I don't need to pass any data from my parent view, so from my home index, to this partial view. So this has now really improved the code of that index. Look here, we have simply the partial view carousel and the partial view PyCard that's being used here. It used to be a much longer listing of code. Now it's much more compact and split up over multiple partial views. Let's make sure that everything still works as before. And there we go, our carousel is now showing nicely here as well. And I'm still able to navigate between the different images.